Welcome to the Lost and Foundry Show. This is the January edition of the Lost and Foundry Show. It's a new year, 2023, so me and Micah are going to talk about some of the new things happening this year, this year's theme, but stick around to the end because we're going to have a sneak peek of Hearts of Hope, what we're doing for Hearts of Hope this year, and why you should be involved with it. All right, so let's get right into it. This weekend was a really fun weekend. We launched something really cool, and it's a new chapel at the Foundry Farm in Coleman.
That's right, Hunter. In the history, Foundry's 51 years old, and we've literally only built 2 buildings from the ground up. We've had the practice of purchasing existing structures and remodeling them for our needs. To fit our needs. But the Coleman campus has a new dorm about 5 years ago, and as of this weekend, we had the big ribbon cutting Sunday for the chapel there at the farm, which is an amazing sight. It's a chapel that'll seat about 200 people. And Sunday we did the ribbon cutting, and it was standing room only. The attendance at that thing was incredible.
The energy was crazy.
Man, it was. You had participants and their families were there. You had supporters from the community. Stanley Dye, who was really the driving force behind getting this chapel built. I got to tell the story real quick. He came to me about a year and a half ago and said, "Mike, I think we need to have a chapel here at the farm." And I said, "Well, I can't disagree with that." I said, but we just really don't have the funding in place to kind of launch that project. And he said, "I think I've got a way to figure this out." And so Stanley Dye of Coleman really was not just the mastermind behind the design of the chapel, but also was the chief fundraiser. The Foundry put $0 into that project. It was literally a gift from that Coleman community and the people that support us, the churches, the businesses. It was a gift to the farm from the men and women of Coleman County. And so that makes it even greater to walk into a brand new building debt-free.
Yeah.
And the fact that that building is going to have so many different functions, we're really excited about it.
Yeah, and before we move on from Stanley Dye, he's not just an influential person who could make a project like this happen. He's an active volunteer in those men's lives, and that was the inspiration behind building this.
It really is, Hunter. For, I think, the better part of 4 years, Stanley and a couple of his friends have shown up every single Monday night to lead a Bible study. And several months before Stanley and I's conversation about the chapel, they were walking through Experiencing God, which is a curriculum. And that really tested his faith in such a way because he said, well, if God's who he says he is, he's going to do what he says he'll do, then I should trust him with all requests. And so that was really kind of the birthing of this idea of we have not because we ask not. And so Stanley gathered around, said, "Hey, God, we're going to build a chapel if it's your plan." And the next thing you know, we got a chapel.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when a project is like a financial project in a building where we do a capital funds campaign and we lay out the project and we get investors, it can still be a very personal project, but there's a little bit of disconnectedness, right? So We're just raising money and we're going to build this thing. This project was kind of incredible in a way because we'll pull up pictures of the cranes brought in were donated time cranes. The participants helped drywall and paint the facility itself. We had friends of the Foundry come in and do the electrical work. We had local businesses paid for the supplies. I don't know if I've ever heard of a project like this that the community just came together. It makes me think of when you see videos of like the Amish community get together and they'll build a barn in a day, or they'll all together pick up a barn and move it to a new location. The Coleman community really came together to make this project happen.
They really did. Everything from the guy that really kind of served as a general contractor, volunteered his time, gave of himself. Sometimes it was in the evenings, sometimes it was on the weekends. But man, it really was a collaborative community effort. And I tell you, the coolest part about it for me was when I pulled up onto that property Sunday, I remembered in the place where that chapel stands today, when we first acquired that property back in 2007, 2008, there was an existing structure there. It was an old house. In fact, it was beyond repair. It didn't even have a floor in it, but it had been a structure that had been there for a long time. So we just sat on it for a while, didn't know what to do with it. We were going to tear it down, use the lumber, but it was all rotten. And so we called the local little fire department, volunteer fire department. They came out and did a training, and they burned that thing down for us. And so there was a pile of ashes. And Sunday when I pulled up, I remembered the passage out of Jeremiah chapter 30 that says, "From these ashes I will restore palaces. From these ruins I will establish my kingdom." And to go from the pile of ashes to literally on the same square footage now sits a beautiful chapel is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And I hope this serves as inspiration for you that big things like this don't happen in a vacuum. It's people who make things like this happen. And the Foundry is literally built on people who had an idea of what things could be like or saw a need and said, I'm going to be the person that stepped in that need. All over the place, people from Bill Heinz to Micah all the way to Eddie and Stanley Dye up at the farm. So I hope that this inspires you today, that if you see a need or you think that there's something that should exist, you could be the one today that makes that thing exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about the chapel itself. A huge open room on the inside, lots of possibility of what it could be. But everybody's been in a chapel before, so let's talk about the one unique piece of the chapel, and that's the smart board in the back of the chapel. And hopefully I have a video or a picture of that you can see.
Yeah, so one of the neatest things about that space is it's going to be utilized at least 6, maybe even 7 days a week. So it goes beyond just the use of a physical worship chapel, which is great because that's where we believe that life change will happen in those moments where men encounter, and their families that are joining them for those chapel services will encounter Jesus. But beyond that, in the back of that room, so that room will shift and literally turn toward the back of the room where there's a smart board that connects the farm campus to our Bessemer campus. And in Bessemer, both our women's campus and our resource center, which will serve our men in Bessemer, all 3 locations will be connected through the use of technology to one instructor in 3 locations. So what it does for us as an organization, instead of having to recruit and hire 3 individual instructors, it gives us the ability to have one instructor in one location teaching the same content to 3 groups of people simultaneously. So it's really a kind of a I won't say groundbreaking, but it's a
for us it is.
It is. It's a hurdle that we just didn't know how to overcome.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we learned during COVID is that we have the ability to still communicate even though we physically can't be in the same space. And so that really kind of has driven the design of that space there in the chapel, so that not just a worship space, but also a classroom type space. Hope Inspired Ministries will also be on campus there at the farm, and they will be utilizing that space as well. In fact, they already are.
Yeah, that's another cool announcement that we can announce right now is that Give and Grow Weeks are at the farm now, and Hope Inspired Ministries is also at the farm now. So everybody on our campuses is receiving this life-changing curriculum.
That's right. You guys may remember back in September, we really launched a new version of how, and a new approach of how we do recovery at the Foundry. And so we've kind of done it in stages or in phases. And Bessemer campus was stage 1. And the first week of January, we pulled we flipped the switch.
Yeah.
I guess pull the trigger is probably not the right way to say that. We flipped the switch and set things in motion in Coleman at the Foundry Farm. And so they are up and running. And Give Week and Grow Week are going great there as well.
Yeah, awesome. We're so excited about all the new stuff happening at the farm. When I was there, I just was imagining over the next 50, 100 years, how much life change was going to happen in that building. 50 weeks a year, you're going to have 2,500 services over my lifetime. Yeah. And the amount of life change that's going to happen there is just really incredible. I mean, I'm incredibly moved by the process, and can't wait to see all the lives changed.
Hunter, I was thinking about this yesterday. We've been at that farm since 2008. Over the course of those years, there have been more than 4,000 men that have driven through that gate to enroll in recovery at the Foundry Farm. And so when you think about the fact that 4,000 men have been impacted, think about how many children and spouses and extended family have been touched because of what God did in somebody's life while they were at the Foundry Farm.
So now a word from an incredible sponsor of the Foundry, Benton Nissan.
Hi, I'm Dale Benton with Benton Nissan, and I'm proud to be a sponsor of the Foundry, where lives are changed through a Christ-centered approach to recovery. So on behalf of the entire Benton Nissan team, we're glad to support the life-changing efforts of the Foundry.
Thank you to Benton Nissan for being such an incredible partner of the Foundry, but also for sponsoring this podcast so that we could talk about the new year, all the new things happening, which brings us to this year's theme, which is the year to overcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
So each year at the Foundry, we have a theme that really becomes a focus point for us. It's kind of an extension of a culture of who we are. The beauty of a theme is, I believe it has a corporate relevance, but also a very personal relevance in our own life. For example, this last year was the year of new beginnings. And we thought, as we were rolling out new aspects of our program, it would be a new beginning for us as a ministry, but also on a personal level, for the men and women that come to the Foundry, the idea that there was a new and fresh beginning. So this year's theme comes from John chapter 16, verse 33, where Jesus says, I tell you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you're going to have trouble, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. And that's really the emphasis for us is, man, so many times we get hung up on the troubles, right? Our life is going to be full of baggage and full of things like fear and anxiety. We get hung up on past failures. Sometimes we get hung up on current failures, the things that we deal with in our life. And that becomes what gets our attention. That's what gets our focus. And I believe the year to overcome is important for us because what it does is he says, hey, take your eyes off the trouble. Put your eyes on me, because I have overcome the world. And I find it interesting where that Jesus didn't say, I give you the ability to overcome the troubles. And I think the reason for that is because that would put faith in our own ability. That if we are doing the right things, if we are trusting God enough, right, then he's going to help me overcome based on my own merit, based upon my own actions. But I believe the beauty of that passage of Scripture in John 16 is the fact where he says, hey, regardless, trust in me. I want to give you the peace that you long for. Man, who doesn't look for peace in their life? Just a little less chaos sometimes feels like peace. But he says, if you'll put your eyes on me, that's where the true overcoming happens, because he has overcome the world.
Yeah, I fear that your themes are a little too revelatory, because last year was the year of new beginnings, and had lots of new beginnings.
We did have a lot of new beginnings last year.
I hope the section of the verse that says, in this world you will have trouble, is a revelatory too.
That's a good point. I am not seeking nor asking for, and not even anticipating additional troubles. But if they do come, and according to the Scripture they will, the great thing is we have, and I think as believers, man, sometimes we sell God's ability short, maybe subconsciously even. But I think the reality is that the creator of the universe loves us so much that he wants us to win and to be successful beyond the troubles. And so many times I want to say, God, I want to be successful and I want to win without the troubles. And I believe in order to overcome, you have to have the experience of the trouble, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the dynamic that's in play for us as individual Christ followers when we embrace this idea of overcoming. So many of us, we will say, Lord, let me bypass the troubles. Right?
Yeah.
What's the old story from when we were little? Can't go under it. Can't go around it. Can't go over it. Got to go through it. And so I think that's the way it is with troubles in our life. We're going to have them.
Yeah, awesome. So excited about the year's theme. The graphic turned out great.
Oh,
which
it's amazing.
I'm personally proud of the graphic we had up on the screen now.
With the heart.
Yeah, with the heart. And
Right.
so I just love that image of he held our lives in his hands.
Yeah.
And, when the struggles come, when the adversity comes, we know that at the end of the day, God's got it.
That's right.
And we'll give it to him. Okay, before we end the Lost and Foundry show, let's talk a little bit about Hearts of Hope. It's coming up next month. Still plenty of time to go to the website and sign up and become a table sponsor, to invite your friends to join your table with you. So for this Hearts of Hope, we are highlighting the special relationship between a volunteer and the participant in our program.
That's right.
And the theme is going to be
Change for all.
Yeah.
It's not just change for the person involved on the receiving end, but it's also change for the person on the giving end, right? That they are great example. Stanley Dye at the Foundry Farm this weekend made the statement from the stage. He said, I thought I was going to do something to change someone else's life and to improve their life. He said, but in reality, my life is the one that has been improved because of my involvement as a volunteer. And that word gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
I got a better way to kind of describe that, and it's not just volunteering, but it's giving myself away to something other than my own personal agenda or for my own personal gain, right? That I'm giving myself, I'm sacrificing this hour of my week or this hour of my month to make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's really where I think true change happens for all of us. And change is another word for improvement, right? We all want to get better. And I believe when we give ourselves away to someone else, to give our time and our attention and our talents. That's the beauty. Some people think I don't have anything to offer as a volunteer at the Foundry. And I make this statement pretty regularly. Your presence is way more important than your performance.
absolutely.
And so sometimes just being here opens the door of opportunity for the Holy Spirit to mold and meld those moments into something meaningful.
Yeah, I don't want to make generalities about the participants, but many of the participants here have never experienced what we would consider a typical family dynamic.
For sure.
And many of the things that we consider normal, everyday things are extraordinary for them, or even outside of their realm of experience. And so, for example, we have an event called Adopt a Table that we do around Christmas time. And it's our way of making sure that participants get an actual home-cooked meal. We have a couple of really great sponsors during that event who come in and they cook home-cooked meals, serve it to 10 participants. Really great. And like you mentioned, one of the participants was like, this is the best meal I've ever had.
Yeah.
I've never had anything like. And to me or you, it's kind of just like your typical home-cooked meal.
It was a Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. He walked up to me, tears in his eyes. He said, I've never experienced anything this nice in my entire life. And we do, if that's your norm, you probably tend to take that for granted.
Absolutely.
But if you've never experienced that, the message that is received is these people love me. These people care about me. I don't even know them, and they care about me. And it's something as let's make it spiritual and scriptural, right? A cup of water in my name, right? And that's what, sometimes it's as simple as offering a cup of water in the name of the Lord that makes the difference in someone else's life.
Yeah. And I think you'd be surprised at how your normal self is an extraordinary self here, right?
Without question.
And just being a mama or a daddy or maybe a brother figure in someone's life, I mean, the impact is immeasurable. And you would not believe, much of the time, they don't talk about us when they leave the Foundry. As they talk about their mentor or the ladies who came once a month to bring a meal. They talk about those people the most.
That's right.
Because sometimes we can be spread thin and we can't have, maybe specific impact in an individual. I think Pastor Mark probably does the best job at just being a good general impact with everybody. But he's an extraordinary example of what a human can be. So that's
Without
not quite fair. So show up to Hearts of Hope, and I promise you'll be inspired. We have already 5 incredible participants who are going to share their story at the event. We also have a mentor and her participant who are going to share their stories of how they grew together and how special that relationship is now. So go to foundryministries.com/HOH to sign up today. We really hope to see you there. And if you need an individual ticket or something, you can email us directly, and I'm sure we can work something out to make sure you're there and you can experience this event. Okay, so that's the Lost and Foundry Show. Thank you so much for joining. Can't wait to see you in February's edition. If you haven't yet, go to foundryministries.com to sign up to be a volunteer like we just talked about. You can head to our hub and see all the really cool opportunities. We're adding opportunities every week. I'm sure you'll find one that fits you and your time and kind of what impact you want to have. Also, you can go to foundryministries.com/thechange to become a monthly giver, which also makes a huge impact here at the Foundry, let me tell you. And that group of givers is becoming larger and larger. Next month, we're going to talk about what the change goal is going to be. I'm so excited to share that with you. But until then, I hope you are inspired today by what we talked about, and I hope you find an opportunity to be an inspiration in someone else's life. Take care.